The Culture Pop Podcast is brought to you by the law offices of Jacob and Ronnie.
Accident or injury, call Jacob and Ronnie. Call Jacob.
Hey, it's Mase. If you or a friend or loved one is injured in an accident, the first person you should call is my friend Jacob. When I did this, Jacob was great. He helped me by talking through the next steps, which really put my mind at ease. When you're injured in an accident, you got to have an expert. That's why you call Jacob, just like I did. Call Jacob, 844-24-JACOB. That's 844-24-JACOB, or visit calljacob.com.
Call Jacob.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Culture Pop Podcast. I'm Steve Mason along with 𝐊𝐚𝐭𝐢𝐞𝐳. This is the show where we talk about everything that's happening in the world of pop culture. Today, a great guest. It's Katy O'Brian, who's one of the stars of the new independent film, Love Lies Bleeding. Absolutely loved it. Sue Baloo, what's happening?
Well, training is almost at an end. Next weekend is the big race.
Yeah, nice. Running the... or participating in the triathlon. Now, how long is each part of the triathlon?
Starts with a half-a-mile swim.
Yep.
To a 12.4-mile bike.
Yep.
And a 4-mile run.
Yeah, there's no way I would ever do that, ever. Under no circumstances.
Well, maybe, after you get your trainer, you'll be in shape.
Yeah, true. So I wanted to talk about a couple of things that I've seen, Sue. Mm-hmm. I've been watching stuff. So I went to see a movie called Civil War. Have you heard about this one?
Yes, I saw the trailer for it.
Oh, what did you roll your eyes about?
No, it just looks very, very depressing.
It is not a happy movie.
Well, it looks depressing in the fact that it just feels like it's what could really, really happen. And it's starting, and it's been brewing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's sort of like it's not determined what era this is in. It's sometime in the future, right? This movie is directed by Alex Garland, who wrote the great screenplay for �ㄉ𝐿𝐴, and was nominated for an Oscar. He also directed a great movie called Annihilation, starring Natalie Portman. And it is, it's a civil war. It's about what life would be like if it actually happened. Texas, California, Florida, trying to secede from the country. They've gone to war with the government. They're headed to Washington, D.C. And it's told through the eyes of Kirsten Dunst, who's a war photographer, and Cailee Spaeny is a kid that sort of tags along and wants to be a war photographer. And it's told from that perspective. It is depressing, but the interesting thing about it is if you're going there looking for some political message, this side or that side, this team or that team, the current situation, you'll never know the politics. There's a war, but we don't know exactly why and who believes what.
Well, that's kind of weird that you don't know. In the Civil War, you knew what was...
You knew? Yeah.
You knew what each side wanted. It's weird, and it worked for you that you didn't know, like you didn't feel like you needed that.
I thought it was genius. It just showed the raw energy, emotion, destruction that would go along with the Civil War without actually choosing a side or a position. I thought it was a great movie. I recommend. I won't give away the ending. I do recommend it. Nick Offerman, by the way, plays President of the United States, which is weird, but it completely works. I don't think of him being presidential.
Well, he's carved out such a unique career.
Yes.
Just seeing him in what was that show where he played? The
Last of Us.
The Last of Us.
Oh.
I never would have expected him to be in that type of part. I love all these comedic actors who embrace these dramatic roles, and they do it so effortlessly.
They really do. All right, another movie I saw. It's called Monkey Man. Have you heard about this one?
Seen the trailer for that too.
Okay, this is written and directed by Dev Patel. It is about a character who is avenging his mom's death, and this is basically like Bollywood John Wick. It's all set in India. And it is like a John Wick movie. He's out to avenge the death of his mother, and he has unbelievable acting scenes where he is fighting, and he's a boxer, comes out in the boxing ring with a monkey mask on and just kicks the shit out of people. He's fantastic in that way. And lots of extended fight sequences that are fantastic. And I read this little story about him. So he was doing all his own stuff. And I'm always impressed when somebody is able to direct themselves in a movie. That seems really hard to me. So they did a big action scene. And in one of these scenes, it's early, there's a fight in a bathroom. And apparently at one point, Dev Patel accidentally punched a mirror and just destroyed his hand. Just ruined his hand. But they kept shooting, and the fight spilled out into the street. And apparently a stuntman dropped an axe on his foot, and he broke 2 toes. So he came out of this fight sequence with a broken hand and 2 broken toes.
Which is what normally would happen if
in life.
It was in life.
Yes.
But, you see these fights that go on forever, and these guys keep on getting up like they're like superhuman.
Yes.
And that's no way, like, because then you've seen movies where somebody just punches somebody and their hand is completely black and blue.
Right.
So you know that. So wow, that's pretty cool that he can continue to do it.
Oh, yeah. And he kept rolling on it. I've always been a big fan of Dev Patel.
He's great.
Yeah. I just think he's a terrific actor. And this was sort of 10 years in the making. Ultimately, he had talked to Neil Blomkamp. Blomkamp. You know who that is? District 9, that director?
Well, I know the movie.
Yeah, he talked to Neil Blomkamp about it, and he passed, and Neil suggested that Dev direct the movie himself, and sure enough, he did. I'm always amazed, too. I mean, so much of it is on him, and yet he's directing and trying to figure out if that's the take he wants, if that's the scene he wants, if that's the angle of, I mean, it's got to be really hard to direct yourself, especially in an action movie.
It's like someone cutting their own hair. It's like...
Doing their own dental work?
Yeah, it's just crazy. But yeah. I read that Jordan Peele is executive producer, right?
He was the EP on it, yeah. And if you get his seal of approval, he's on a roll. I mean, he's been great from the jump. If you have his seal of approval and his participation, I think you were, without question, on the right track. So I recommend Monkey Man also. So on Sunday, I was looking for something to do. We were looking for something to do, and we found 2 tickets, $50 each, in row M at the 𝐕𝐿𝐿𝐿 to see Funny Girl. Now, have you ever seen the show Funny Girl?
Well, I've seen the movie, but I never saw it.
That's enough. The Barbra Streisand version, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and I just watched it not that long ago.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and it still holds up. It's great.
Yeah, it holds up. So I got to say, the show is just okay for me. I thought it was fun. It's one of those old-fashioned, very talky musicals, which is not necessarily my favorite thing. I love when the music sort of seamlessly moves through the show. But Katarina McCrimmon, who plays Fanny Brice, gives, I think, one of the top 10 performances I have ever seen on stage. I mean, that woman can belt. And there are 2 gigantic songs in that. There's People Who Need People, which turns into a really big number in it. And the other one is Don't Rain on My Parade. And that's a really big song. It's the end of Act 1 song, and it circles back in Act 2. I mean, I think the reason to see the show is Katarina McCrimmon. By the way, Melissa Manchester plays Fanny Brice's mom. Do you remember Melissa Manchester?
Absolutely.
Don't cry out loud. Just keep it inside. I recommend it's there for a little bit longer. Funny Girl, Katarina McCrimmon. I think she's going to be a gigantic star on Broadway.
Well, I had an opportunity to see it this Sunday, a matinee, but I'm training. I'm training in the morning, and I just think I'm going to be exhausted.
I would imagine you're going to be exhausted. Yeah, but it's definitely worth seeing, especially for her. And then I finished The Regime, which is the HBO show starring Kate Winslet and Matthias Schoenaerts. And What I find interesting is it was only 6 episodes and it ended. It's a one and done, only 6 episodes. So I was curious about that. And let me just say, the show, I think, starts out in a very silly place and finishes in kind of a dark place. So there's a huge kind of emotional swing during the series. I really, really liked it. The beginning made me laugh a lot. I laughed a lot. I could not sell Juan on the show. He didn't think it was funny. But Kate Winslet is doing this character where she's the chairman or the president of this weird European country that is unnamed. And she's got this tick where she always talks with her mouth a little bit like this. And she is brilliant at it. And it is really, really funny. So you'll be interested. You're a member of the Writers Guild, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So why is it 6 episodes? I did a little bit of research. So in a series that is 6 episodes long or less, you only have to use 3 writers. If you do a series that is 7 to 12 episodes, you have to hire 5 writers. And if it's 13 or more episodes, you have to hire 6 writers. So by doing 6, you actually hire 2 less writers and save money.
I wonder if that's a new rule.
It is. It's part of the brand new deal with the WGA. Yeah.
Yeah, because when I was, when I was staffed, this was way before streamers, so everything was network television, and I worked on sitcoms where you had like 15 writers or more on staff.
Big writers room, yeah.
Big writers room. And they paid for everything. Like when I worked on the Ellen Show, and when I worked on Brotherly Love, the production company, they bought us lunch every day. We did Starbucks runs. We did Jamba Juice runs.
Wow.
Everything. And the kitchen was stocked with great food and treats. And
damn.
Yeah. So they really spend a lot of money on you. But, you work your ass up on those shows.
Right. But I think it's really weird that and by the way, I think because of this, we're going to see more 6-episode series and more 7-episode shorter series because you're saving money on the writing.
Well, I mean, in 6 episodes, did you feel satisfied when the 6th episode came?
It was a really good arc. I mean, I would have loved for it to go on, but I thought it was a really good arc that I completely liked.
Well, I guess they're proving that you don't need 10 or 15 or 20 episodes to wrap up a limited series. Maybe you don't. Yeah.
By the way, I also like a limited series. Like, there's never going to be a series, a season 2 of this, which I like. It feels like a really good, complete story, 6 episodes, nice arc, ends in a really interesting way, starts out funny, ends. I thought it was just a really good series. Did you watch the first episode of The Sympathizer? The Robert Downey Jr. series? It's just started on HBO. It's good. I'm not all in yet. I want to see episode 2. You know how that goes? I need a couple episodes before I know a show I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah. Like I watched the first couple of episodes of The Regime, and I loved it. I just ventured off and watched some other things that I had to watch. So
yeah, well, that's the way it goes. Yeah. Anyway, that's some stuff I saw. Have you seen anything good lately? I know you've been training. You've been doing everything.
I mean, I just finished watching Curb Your Enthusiasm. I just watched the last episode.
I thought the last episode of Curb was fucking genius. I love the fact that he said, screw you. I liked the final episode of Seinfeld, and I'm going to do the entire thing again. Did you like it?
I had some issues with it only because I find that the ridiculousness sometimes of Larry's behavior just is so over the top. And he complains about things like on the plane, and he was complaining about the seatbelt. Like, what? Why do I have to wear a seatbelt? Things like that it's like, I just thought it was too much. Sometimes they harp on things and they make it's just such a big deal about something that is just a little too outrageous for me.
Right, right. Speaking of which, I had a problem, by the way, at Funny Girl. I wanted to mention this. So I think standing ovations are super cheap now. Everybody gets a standing ovation, no matter what. You know, like the 4 ladies from The View get a standing ovation just for walking out on stage. But I mean, you know, Kelly Clark, all these people, it starts with a standing ovation.
Well,
So,
when you say that about these types of shows like The View and Kelly Clarkson and Drew Barrymore, that's the warm-up guy.
oh yeah,
You know, I mean, that's all produced to get a standing ovation.
right, right. But like a standing ovation used to mean something.
Right.
Now everybody gets one. And I was really upset at Funny Girl because I told you, I thought the show was just fine. Not great, just fine. But Katarina McCrinnon was unbelievable. So I'm ready for a standing ovation. But I'm saving it until Katarina McCrinnon comes on stage because I want her to know that so completely premature ovation. The very first group comes on stage, everybody's on their feet. I wanted it to go to her, but now, like the chorus gets a standing ovation, which is fine. They did a nice job. They did their dancing, they did their background sing, all that stuff, but I wanted to save it for her. I thought it was a premature ovation. What do you think?
What do I think about the premature
The
ovation?
premature ovation, yeah. What do you think of that?
I mean, I agree with you. I mean, sometimes, you know, it's not, to me, it's not earned, but, you know, I don't know. I mean,
You can't stop it.
You can't stop it. And, you know, I want to blame everything on the pandemic.
What does the pandemic have to do with it?
People were home for so long and they weren't out and seeing live shows. And it's like, we're just glad that it's happening.
Yeah,
we're just happy to be out and seeing entertainment again.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, it's
So
like I
the
blame everything
pandemic
on
is the reason?
I blame everything on on the pandemic and everything that breaks or is lost in my house on my housekeeper.
So Juan has an imaginary fight going on with our housekeeper. Like he's like muttering about her all the time. She's wonderful. She's been with us for probably a decade. But Juan is upset that she always puts the pillowcases on the wrong pillows. And I have said to him, why don't you explain to her exactly what you want? Because I bet she'll do it. It's like, no. She just needs to do it right. So he's having this imaginary fight with our housekeeper over something that he could just tell her, no, just this pillowcase goes here, this pillowcase goes there.
It's funny you brought that up because in my bathroom, there's 2 switches for one of the lights. It's on either side of the bathroom. And every time she leaves, I go to turn it on the side that I turn it on all the time, and it doesn't go on. I always have to do the other one. And I was thinking, do I tell her to just not use that switch? I mean, it's really not that big of a deal. And even like behind me, you see that light where the 𝐊𝐿𝐴 poster is?
Yeah.
It's folded down all the time.
Yes.
Because I don't like when it's in the picture when I'm doing the podcast.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because even Juan was saying when we were setting up, he was saying, put it down because it kind of looks like, I don't know what it is. It kind of looks like maybe it's a sculpture or something, right?
Right.
So
she leaves it, she puts it upright again?
This is what she did.
Oh boy.
She put it like that.
This is a problem.
She didn't realize that it was like that for a reason.
Yeah, there's a point to it. And are you going to explain it to her?
I'm going to tell her not to put the light up, but as far as the light switch, I'm going to let that one go. That's just too anal for me.
Yeah. All right, well, let's do this thing, huh? Huh? Our guest today began her career as a martial artist and police officer. She moved to LA in pursuit of an acting career, landed roles on The Walking Dead, �㊠𝐿 The Mandalorian, and Westworld. Her latest project is the independent film Love Lies Bleeding, also starring Kristen Stewart. Katy O'Brian is here. Katy, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
So, Katy, you and I have something in common. We both know a guy named Steve Zim who runs a gym called �㊠𝐿𝐴, and I am super out of shape, but I've gone back to him. You play a bodybuilder in Love Lies Bleeding, and you did a whole training process with him. Describe sort of the transformation you worked on with Steve.
So I have competed in the past, and I had a lot of success with one training day, or one muscle group a day or whatever, and it was a lot of cardio, which I didn't love. They gave me two training options. One was Steve, who his plan was we'll train once a day, and he was 5 minutes away from my house. And the other was 45 minutes away in Hollywood, and they want us to train twice a day.
Ooh.
And so it was an easy choice for me.
Yeah, sure.
So I went over to Steve's. I had 2 weeks before shooting to get in shape for the movie, right? And fortunately, they shot in pretty much chronological order, so we were able to gradually lean out as Jackie's leaning out, which was really, really great.
Yeah.
But he made it as easy for me as possible. And what I absolutely loved about his training process was there was no doubt in my mind that every single day was catered to me specifically. I've had coaches before that it was like, I'm going to run you through what I did the previous person, whatever. But Steve, it was very much every single day was different, was catered to me. He would change one little position of my arm, one little way that I moved my arms, and it was dramatically different. The results were insane with how quickly we had to do it. And then the cardio that he had me do, so we're working out 6 days a week. The cardio he had me do was just walking uphill on a treadmill, and then like every now and then I would jog.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an hour of that. Like I just was leaning out constantly. I had a meal plan from NutriFit, which is a LA-based company. And
yeah, I actually use NutriFit also.
Love her. Love Jackie. Just like
Jackie is the best.
She works too hard.
Yeah, she is so crazy. I love Jackie from NutriFit.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. And yeah, like almost every meal was different. So I never felt bored with my meals. I never felt bored with my training. And I even had like one of our producers would work out with me on set, and one of our my assistants sometimes would come in, and I just felt like not only was I learning, I was getting to like kind of fit in with this team effort too. And I was never sore. I was never in pain. Sore, like where I couldn't do anything.
Right. Like I'm going to be tomorrow.
Right. Yeah. Like he put me through an ab workout the other day that I still feel. It was like almost a week ago, but yeah, but he was focused on training for screen, which was really cool. So he had muscles popping that normally we wouldn't exsituate for like a stage. And he was just like every step of the way was just so considerate. He didn't want me to do, crazy high interval training or heavy weight because he didn't want me to get injured. So it was a lot of, just genuine consideration, and obviously someone that's been doing it for about as long as I've been alive. So,
yeah.
So Steve, so how many sessions have you had, Steve?
I've had 3 sessions so far. 3 sessions.
Okay.
Last night was the ass kicker. I mean, I am going to be sore as hell tomorrow. But I don't ever understand that. You're sore not the day after you work out, but 2 days after you work out, right?
Yeah. Delayed onset muscle fatigue. Yeah.
I'm so excited for my Wednesday. It'll be great.
Yeah. I always feel it 2 days later. And when I feel it the next day, I know it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Steve has threatened that after he trains for a while, he's going to do the show shirtless.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Once I'm really ripped and swole, then I'm going to do it. Like, do you use those terms? Do you say ripped and swole and things like that? Or is that just something I say as a joke?
I do, but here's the thing. Like, you always start out, you're like, oh, I'll never say that. And then you start to say it ironically, and then it becomes part of your vocabulary. So I did that with like lit. Oh, that's so lit. That's fire. And then I started being like, oh, you're shredded, bruh. And then I just kind of, it just starts happening. So Yeah.
So I would think with your history of competing, and I don't know how long ago it was that you were competing, that you were in great shape prior to these training sessions. I would think, right?
Yeah. I was in good shape. I will say though, I trained myself for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I feel like I have to say the whole title now. So I trained myself for that, and then I got to work with the set trainer every now and then, and he gave me some cool tips, and it was a totally different style of workout. And I looked at my measurements from that and my early measurements from Love Lies Bleeding. And from the start of Love Lies Bleeding to the end, I put on like 2 inches in my shoulders.
Wow.
No, wait, like 4. I guess so maybe 2 each. I don't know. Or across my back. I don't know where the growth came from, but it was a lot in a short period of time. And then I put on 2 inches on my legs. My bicep flexed was like an extra 2 inches. So it was like somehow we were able to grow a lot of muscle while slowly cutting this weight, and it was in a very short period of time. And I'm just like, and my waist didn't change, so it's all very cool, very proportional. I can't give enough praise to Steve. Like I think,
you looked very swole and shredded in the movie, I thought. Now, you trained in martial arts from the time you were a little kid, right? Was that like your first passion?
Yeah, it was one of them. I think my first passion was acting, honestly. And even as a little kid, I would always, my grandma had all of these she was a flapper, like she had all of these wild outfits, and I would put them on as a kid, and I would just I don't know, act out these crazy scenarios, and I would force my brother to do it with me. And so that was my first passion. But my dad signed me up for karate after I was bullied in kindergarten, I want to say. Yeah. So he signed me up for karate, and it became kind of a family activity. And there was something about it that it gives you a little bit of confidence, even if you're bad at it, which I wasn't really bad at it, but it just gives you just a little bit of confidence in how to move your body, and how to stand up for yourself. And I always loved that, I guess, as well as just kind of the reminder of this is something that I'm used to doing with my dad.
Right.
And yeah, last year actually so my dad retired a couple of years ago, and he was just really struggling to find something to do to busy himself, I guess. And he found this old karate school. Essentially, it was one of the teachers from that. He found at his gym and wound up starting to train again. And so I actually got to go to his black belt test last year at 70 years old.
Wow.
He did his black belt test.
That is so cool.
It was so cool. And I got to be a guest judge because I'm a 3rd degree black belt. But not in karate. So, but yeah, it was, it's always been, kind of it's almost nostalgic in a way. Just I love training that out of nostalgia.
So this role, based on your background, I mean, it's so perfect for you. And I had read some very interesting story that you told about getting the part, and I want you to talk about that because the path that you had to take, to grab it.
It was silly. It was. Hi, my dog's over here now. It was. They couldn't find the person to play Jackie. They had originally gone out for, I think they really wanted professional bodybuilders or professional athletes, and were struggling to find someone who could carry the emotional weight that the character has as well. And there are not a lot of actresses that I'm familiar with, at least, that have competed in bodybuilding, or at least not figure or there's bikini, which is usually a lot smaller, and then there's figure, which is kind of more of what they were looking for 80s bodybuilding. So a fan sent me this open casting call on Twitter, and it was they're looking for someone to fill this role as a queer female bodybuilder playing opposite Kristen Stewart in an A24 movie directed by Rose Glass. And it was every single check that I have ever wanted in my career. And I was like, how have I not gotten an audition for this? So being the type A weirdo that I am, I made a PowerPoint presentation with my old with my old bodybuilding picture. I just found it again and I sent it to Rose because she apparently had never seen it, but it had all my old competition photos, and I had like long luxurious hair of fake lashes and the crazy spray tan and all that stuff, the tight, super way too expensive bikinis. And so I put all of that on there. I put my I used to be a trainer and like all of this stuff and my acting resume, and I would send it to my agent and my manager. And I was like, if I don't get an audition for this, like I don't have to book it necessarily, but if I don't get an audition for this, I'm going to lose my mind.
Can I just ask you a quick question? Did your agents not know about your background with bodybuilding and all that? Did they not know?
They did. And she even said that she had submitted me. So I don't really know if they just, there are a lot of things that go into play, and it might have been the case that they were still just looking for like actual professionals, or sometimes agents flub. They're like, oh yeah, she competed in bodybuilding and there's no evidence. So I don't, but I don't know why one way or another it wasn't pushed for harder. But they were definitely down to. I think it was like maybe as they were casting this, it might have been 2 months out from shooting, maybe a month out or something. Like it was very, very close. They were down to the line. They needed to find the person. And that's why they threw out that open call. And I think that's how I wound up slipping in and getting an audition. But I also was like, do you think it was because my short hair? I was like, do you think like when they saw the long, luxurious hair, they were like, oh, maybe that's the person. But yeah, you never know. So yeah, I got an audition. It was just a self-tape, so it just me and a friend reading these lines. And it flowed off my tongue so perfectly that I was like, if this is there's no one else that's going to play this role. Like, and that's the like arrogance or confidence that I went into every single audition with thereafter. And I'm hoping that's what booked me apart, because I was just like, I don't know who else understands this character as much as I do. I don't know who else would fit this role as much as I would, and I don't know who else like authentically could portray it as well. So I just went in
super tailor-made for you.
Yeah.
But you had 6 auditions. Now when you went in for 6 auditions, was it the same scene over and over and over again, or it was okay?
Yeah, it was from the initial audition callback. It was the scene where we meet in the gym, and I can't remember what the other. I think that might have been the biggest part of it. And then when she brought us in for the chemistry reads, the breakfast scene too, or like morning after like we're having breakfast together.
Mm-hmm.
So those were like our chemistry read scenes where I met with Kristen after the 3rd audition, and then they brought me in the next day. Because there was the big fight scene where I'm like throwing stuff and screaming, and originally I was drunk and high, and they changed that up. So we did all of that, and then they had me read with this legendary acting coach, Larry Moss, who's worked with Helen Hunt, Leonardo DiCaprio, and he's phenomenal. Like our first session, he talked to me for 5 minutes. I think he figured me out, and I was bawling in like 5 minutes. Wow. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Who are you? You're not human. And then Rose had me come back in either 1 or 2 more times, and it was just me, and it was the same scenes over and over again. And finally, I was like, hey, if I'm not the one, I don't want to do it. I don't want you to force this. You have to go find who's going to authentically play this character for you.
Right.
And she's like, no, you were from the beginning, the person that I wanted. And I'm like, well, what are we doing then?
Yeah. So, why did we do this 6 times?
Yeah. But I think, it's talking to some of the producers after, it really is like, there's so much that goes behind these projects, and some of it is just out of your control. And one of it was they really wanted a name, like a big name, to take this part on, because it's hard to get financing for, especially a movie like this. It's a huge risk. Mm-hmm. So I totally get it. But at the same time, I'm very grateful I was able to portray this character, and that they gave me this opportunity, because it's a game changer. You know, it actually shows that I can do something other than sci-fi and superhero stuff. Like, I can come into this indie world and play a fully formed human being. And it was such a great opportunity, and I got to work with these incredible artists, and it was great.
So you mentioned sci-fi, and I mean, it was sort of dismissive, but I mean, come on, you are one of the few actors ever to appear in both the Marvel universe and the Star Wars universe. That's got to be really cool, right?
It is, yeah. It's and I was also in a DC Arrowverse show.
Wow! So you actually have the triple crown there.
Yeah, I was in a Marvel show, Marvel movie, DC show, and then So I don't know what Star Trek's deal is, but
where's Star Trek?
I don't know what's going on. And it's really funny because, like, I love Marvel. Like, I love Marvel. I grew up watching the Saturday morning cartoons. I watched X-Men. I watched Spider-Man. If they had, I don't know, any, I know this isn't Marvel, but it's like original Batman cartoons. And I always wanted to be an X-Men. I know that
Me too. I always wanted to be an X-Men also. And X-Men, I'm gay. I think that X-Men is an allegory. I always took it as an allegory about LGBTQ kids, because the idea was you went to a special school, you were special, you had special powers, you were different from. I always took it that way. Did you take it that way?
It could be that. I mean, I thought it was anyone who felt kind of out of the norm, for sure, because, like, your powers are spawned by trauma.
Yeah.
And that to me is like, that feels pretty significant. And the world hates you just because, and it's because you're different.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something that I feel like is for sure relatable.
Yeah.
And I think that there's Scott McCloud has this book, Understanding Comics, and it's a really interesting and beautiful dissection of how comic book art works, but also how it's really relatable to certain people. And one thing that he talks about is the mask. And when somebody's wearing a mask as their superhero form, anyone can project themselves onto them. So you're no longer like, white Bruce Wayne. It's like anyone can be Batman.
Yeah.
And it's like, the superhero suit is molded, so it's like, you don't have to be shredded or whatever. You could just be Batman. So like the more of that you can kind of relate to, the more you can see yourself as a superhero. And there's a way that they kind of do that in comics to try to relate to people. But I feel like I've gone off on a tangent because I'm obsessed with comics, but I
grew up, I still have all my comic books from when I was a kid. Still have all of them. Yeah.
I got into like X Factor investigation because I was trying to find someone who like kind of sort of fit me, I guess. And there's this character M who's very like weird and has this whole weird family and weird side plot that I think would be horribly impossible to translate to film. But I got obsessed with that character, so I just started collecting like every comic that she was in, and now it's this giant stack of this obscure character no one knows about.
But
yeah, and that's it. It's like finding, I don't know, someone or something that kind of like connects with you. And I think that's what was so magical with that world. And then, Star Wars, for whatever reason, I love fantasy. I love the superhero genre. And then when it goes into space, I start to like, it loses me a little bit. So Star Wars, I was never a huge fan of. But my brother is a big fan. And talking about someone that still reads like every comic book that comes out, plays every video game. Like my brother's a huge nerd. So whenever I book these projects, he's like almost more excited about it than I am. And sometimes I'll hit him up and be like, hey, what do you know about this character? Or what do you know about this part of the world that, he can help me with some research about. So it's kind of a fun little, I don't know, team effort, I guess. And he's like, he's my, I don't know, this is like a kosher term anymore, but like he's my Irish twin, so we're less than a year apart. So we're very very close and
Very connected. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is so not my world.
Yeah, Sue, you're not a comic book person. Yeah.
Well, I think of like comic books because I'm so much older. But I went to summer camp and we used to, or the Archie comics. That's what we read. No one was a superhero. Sad sacks. It was the army guy, but nobody had superpowers.
What?
Back then. Well, no, in the comics that I read.
Archie had no superpowers. Yeah. In Riverdale, there were no people with superpowers apparently.
Yeah. I didn't watch.
Yeah, I was not. So I wanted to ask you about Kristen Stewart, who you worked with. So I'm just going to be frank. There's some people that are like not Kristen Stewart fans for whatever reason. And I think she is just absolutely fantastic. She did a movie a couple of years ago called, I don't know if you saw it, Personal Shopper. But she is so good. I think it won like the big acting award. She won the big acting award at the French Oscars. I think she's a brilliant actor. What's she like as a scene partner?
Yeah, I think that to address the former like haters gonna hate, and I think that a lot of people judge her based off of like maybe Twilight or something, which is a very specific genre. Like if you're going to see a teen romance movie, like what are you looking for there? Like are you looking for an Oscar performance? And I don't really know. So as a scene partner, I didn't know what to expect. And actually it was in the chemistry read where I was like, oh, this is going to be fun, a collaborative environment, because I saw her outside the audition room before we started auditioning. And I was like, I'm just going to go up and chat with her and just see like kind of what her vibe is. And she was like, yeah, cool. Hey, yeah, come here. Let's sit down. And we're just chatting like right off the bat. And I'm being my awkward self and talking about how my cat peed in my car and it smells really bad. And she's like, kind of playing it cool and trying not to, I think, judge that. But, and then we all find out that we both have cats, we both have dogs, whatever. And then we go into the chemistry and we start doing our scene and it's just play. We're just playing off of each other. We kind of threw the lines out of the way and just started playing around and just kind of having fun. And I think that was kind of the goal of the movie is like, yeah, it's something that we both were really, really passionate about. And that was another thing it's so cool to see someone who's had that much of a career still be so excited for something,
Yeah.
And something that, you both get to be a part of and still support, this is Rose's second movie and she's like 100% I'm going to support this woman. Like she was giving it her all. And that was really fun for me. It's like, yeah, okay, cool. We're all a team. And it didn't feel like this place of ego. And there was, everyone was like very precious of her. Like there were these moments where we're like, we'll be roughhousing around or something off camera. And they're like, no. And Kristen's like, you guys, I'm a human being. Like I can have fun. I'm not like a stick, I'm not going to like snap. So yeah, I mean, we just, I think it was just like, it felt like a really great collaborative environment and, it wasn't, I didn't feel out of place, which was really nice. Cause like coming in as someone who's not had that experience yet of like essentially like co-leading a film or being, number 2 on a call sheet or whatever, it was like, it was a really, really cool, team effort. And I didn't feel like anybody was trying to tear me down or anything like that. It was her and I got to work a lot with Ed too. And we had so many, Ed and I had probably the most scenes that were cut were like Ed and my scenes together, which was such a bummer because I felt
he's Ed Harris. I mean, that's like, hey.
I know. And I just felt so transported in those scenes. And there were moments where I learned so much because it was like, as long as the camera was rolling and Rose didn't call cut, he was in the scene, right? There was no, if an incident happened with my crazy wig or whatever, and like the lace was showing and I'm like on the ground crying and this is something that got cut or whatever, but he would literally just like in character, move my hair piece back to fix it, take it back a couple steps, keeping the exact tone and nature that I needed to keep up my emotion and just like start it back in a place that made sense and keep going. And it was like, we had our driving scene together where a lot of that got cut to for sound issues. And we had a lot of issues with the camera that day and stuff. And there were times where they didn't call cut and the scene was over. So we just kept making stuff up, and kept staying,
That's awesome.
staying character. Yeah. It was like, I felt like I got a master class in acting, and Kristen's style is like, is very different. She's like jumping, revving herself up and kind of pacing back and forth and getting the energy up in that way. And it was cool to see how all these actors, did their thing,
Yeah.
Yeah, I really love the evolution of your relationship with Kristen Stewart, because I was wondering when you first met, was it an opportunistic situation for you because you needed a gym, you needed a place to stay, and then it turns out that you fall in love with this woman, and it felt like it was like a Thelma and Louise, literally on steroids. That's what this relationship felt like to me, with a much happier ending.
Yeah. And what's so funny is Rose had never seen Thelma and Louise. So she's like, what are you talking about with all these comparisons or whatever? But yeah, she wanted, there's a lot of moments in there that I think could be misinterpreted, but she, my scene with JJ at the beginning, she kind of wanted that to not feel as gross as it could. She's like, she wanted it to be as consensual as possible, right? Like maybe even I was having fun, and like they cut the ones. I think we had like 4 takes to do that scene, so I had a couple where I was laughing and whatever. They used what they could. But with Kristen, they wanted it to be that just like indescribable magnetic force of you just connect eyes and your world blows up. And so that meeting there was no opportunity with it or whatever. I kind of ask her, is this your gym? And she's like, no, just work here. And so I'm like, okay, so it's not, that's not it. But it's this just immediate connection. And she wanted it to kind of, for me, I feel like the love and the drugs like linked up, like love is the drug at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's what we keep going back for and what we're like immediately with that huge rush. So yeah, they just wanted it to be kind of an indescribable, almost campy, like, moment where you just.
So last thing for you, a little bit of a spoiler, I guess, but
yeah,
you get gigantic at the end. And you have that scene with Ed Harris and holding him to all that kind of stuff. What's it like to be gigantic? Like, when you look at that movie now, do you think, God, that's so damn cool, I'm gigantic? And how do you interpret it in terms of the story of the film?
The thing that I was most afraid of was being able to pull that off in this budget. I think we were all nervous about like, how is this going to look at the end? And so when I finally got to see it, I was like, oh my God, they did it. Because we played it so many different ways. I'm just alone during those scenes, and I've got like a Barbie doll of Ed Harris, like, wriggling him around, and I have to like place him directly on a certain spot, and it's all like mathematically, I don't know, figured out ahead of time or something, and it's a science that I don't understand at all. So I have to hit all of these very specific marks to make it line up appropriately. And then also I'm trying to figure out how he's moving, and then at the same time, you're in a bikini and you're giant and you're like, I hope this all looks fine.
Yeah.
It was all such a funny kind of moment. And what I did love was Rose was like, she wanted it to be kind of campy and silly, and like you have the wind blowing my hair and I'm all glittered up, and they wanted it to kind of be like a self-actualization moment, or kind of like how I wanted to look during my bodybuilding competition, but maybe didn't because I was all a mess. And there's that element of it. There's in my mind, hearing Kristen in trouble or Lou in trouble releases the full potential of that love drug, you know, and that's what makes you the biggest and the most powerful that you can be. I think one of the best things about it is you can kind of leave it up to interpretation. And at the end of the day, Rose just wanted to have fun and do something funny. And you can also just not interpret it at all and just be like, that was random, and enjoy it. But originally, when I'm working out in Lou's apartment, originally we were supposed to have the 50-foot woman on screen in the back. And I'm working out, and that's just kind of in the background. So it's like a little bit of foreshadowing, but then they had to change it to Gulliver's Travels. And I think that that's maybe because of rights or something.
Right, sure.
Yeah. We also were trying to get Popeye footage, and they're like, oh, we don't want to be associated with drugs. And I happened to watch Wolf of Wall Street. And it's like, right there, Popeye, drugs.
Oh, yeah.
Like interlinked. So I was like, seems fake. But yeah, so I just, I don't know. I don't know. I feel of it as like the love drug thing is the end result, but I think that just have fun with it, and
sure.
This is a movie that she doesn't want anyone to take too seriously, you know.
Yeah.
You know, there's one other thing that I wanted to talk to you about, because I always stay for the end credits, and I love when directors do something to entertain you while you're watching the credits, and there's that kind of Bond-esque silhouette of you and Kristen with the orange scrim in the back. Was that something that you guys were just kind of having fun with? Was it completely choreographed? How did that come about?
I'm glad you asked, because one day Rose said, I'm going to have you two dance on this little stage that we built because I think it looks cool. And I said, Rose, dancing is not on my resume. I'm a terrible dancer. I don't enjoy it. And she's like, whatever, just go out and have fun. So no, that wasn't choreographed. That was me and Kristen dancing for like 30 minutes or something to some song in the background. And finally, I just got frustrated because there are a lot of things that Kristen and I do that are similar. So like we would both want to lead the dance, right? And so finally I was like, oh, and I just picked her up and swung her around my body. And that just happened because I was frustrated because I had to dance that day. But I'm glad that they kept it and played it, because it does look cool at the end.
It does.
But we were just like, I was the whole time like, Kristen, I hate this. And she's like, just do it. It's fine. I'm like, just the worst moment of my life. The worst dancer in the world.
No, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. It looked good.
Yeah, I mean, we had fun in the end.
Yeah, so last thing for you. You, as we've established, are really swole and ripped and shredded. I have gone back to train with the same guy. Sue does. I think it's fair, Sue, you don't believe I'm going to be able to do it. You've doubted that I will stick with it, right?
Well, I don't doubt that you'll do it and take your shirt off on the air. It's what is going to be underneath your clothing. I don't want to be a naysayer, you know, because...
But you're saying nay.
Well, because you are the type of person who always says you're going to do something, and then you don't. Like you say, oh, I stopped smoking weed, and then like, you know, I talk to you a week later, and it's like, oh God, I got so high last night. So you are that guy. So based on your past record, my money is on you not doing it.
Katy, what advice do you give me? How do I stick with this and make it happen?
I mean, unfortunately, the easiest way for me to do it is to know that I have a project coming up where I'm going to. So I think you have to set a date for you to take your shirt off on camera and stick to it. And that'll be a motivator.
Incentive.
And maybe even like a very public photo shoot or something.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that would be great. Or you need to get cast in something where you need to be swell.
And I get to be gigantic at the end.
You need to be ripped.
What I'm hoping for. Yeah, ripped and swole and shredded. And hey, Katy, this has been so much fun. Love Lies Bleeding is playing all over the place right now. You, Kristen Stewart, great movie. Rose Glass, the director. Creatively, I thought amazing. Particularly the ending was audacious and cool. And I guess I will see you at the gym if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Let's work out
All right.
together.
Yeah, it sounds good.
All right. Katy, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right. There it is. Katy O'Brian. Great movie. Love Lies Bleeding. Kristen Stewart's terrific. She's terrific. And she does, as we said, I mean, she is a bodybuilder. I mean, she's legit.
Well, when she first came on screen, I was like, well, she's not wearing like a superhero suit underneath.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
And I really, at that point, I hadn't read up about her, so I didn't know that she professionally did this, but I couldn't imagine that she didn't.
Right. Exactly. So, all right. Well, there you go. There's the show. I think a good one.
Good one. It was fun.
Yeah. I want to remind everybody, if you are listening on Apple or on Spotify, please subscribe to the show. Leave us a 5-star rating and go ahead and leave us a review, hopefully a really good review. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, scroll down, leave us a comment if you want to react to any of the stuff we talked about today, the movie Monkey Man, the movie Love Lies Bleeding, the movie Civil War, anything like that. Just leave us a comment down there and we will respond to it. And there you have it. There's today's Culture Pop Podcast. Sue, great seeing you. And we will see everybody next time on the Culture Pop Podcast.